Hi everyone, welcome to the Biohacking Beauty podcast, the podcast where we break down the different movers and shakers in the skin health industry, looking how to biohack your skin and give you the best skin of your life. My name is Amitai Eshel, your host, and this podcast is brought to you by Young Goose, the company that I co-founded with my lovely wife Anastasia. Thank you for joining us. In today's episode, I have said Anastasia coming back to us for another episode. She's obviously the most requested guest on the podcast. And today's episode is about sunscreen, about the sun, its relationship with our skin, and how can we biohack this relationship? How can we optimize this relationship? Expect to learn the difference between, I would say, intrinsic and extrinsic aging, why we age, why our skin is aging faster because of the sun. How can we, again, improve our relationship with the sun, get all of the good while mitigating the bad? Expect to learn the difference between chemical and mineral sunscreens. What other ingredients we can add in order to improve our sunscreen, and also what is kind of BS in the field. So without further ado, please welcome Anastasia Khojaeva. Welcome, Anastasia, finally to another episode in which you're starring for the Biohacking Beauty.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having me.
If anyone hasn't watched you yet, I would have introduced you properly at the beginning of this episode, but obviously you are the co-founder of Young Goose. You are the brain behind most of the biochemistry of Young Goose, and today we actually have an apt topic since we are approaching summer. Some would say it's already summer.
I mean, yeah, the summer is here.
Summer is here.
I'm still approaching, but the rest of the world is already in summer.
Florida is always, Florida is approaching boiling point. So.
Or maybe like in your head, you're in Australia. Yeah. It's the opposite there.
Yeah, but so summer's here,
mm-hmm.
and we are going to talk about sunblock.
Yes, and actually, also Hugh Jackman wanted to
come on the podcast?
Well, first of all, yes, but we're so busy. Yeah. So I don't know if we can fit him in.
Sorry.
But we can pass a message that Hugh Jackman wanted us to pass, which also has to do with the summer approaching. So
personally, he called us. He said, "Hey guys."
Yeah. So a little backstory. Hugh Jackman has undergone multiple Mohs surgeries, which are cancer incision surgeries, over the years to treat basal
carcinoma.
Yeah, basal cell carcinoma. So in 2013, at the age 33, was his first surgery. And then he had surgeries in 2015, 16, 17, and recently in 2022.
Wow.
So just in a span of 9 years, he had over 5 surgeries. And here's what he wanted to say. He wanted to say, please wear sunscreen. It's just not worth it without it. No matter how much you want to tan, trust me, not worth it. Put some sunscreen on. You'll still have an incredible time out there. All right? Be safe. So I think this is an important message from Hugh Jackman himself, and then we can,
Yeah, and I think we can
go on more.
Yeah, I think we can have two different discussions, which are one, like, should you or shouldn't you wear sunscreen? Which, if someone's not in the biohacking kind of alternative wellness, health optimization space, it might sound weird that we can have a discussion about it.
But there is a debate about it, yeah.
There is a debate about it, but there is. But it is an ongoing debate in the health optimization sphere. And another discussion is like chemical versus mineral SPF, and what kind of products are we putting on our skin or into our skin to defend us.
So let's talk about both. Let's go.
Okay, so let's start with like why do we want to use sunscreen? And
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to understand that there are several types of electromagnetic radiation, and that the one type, which is UV, is comprised of 3 wavelengths. So we have UVA, which is what I think people commonly know.
yeah,
And
A stands for aging, by the way.
Exactly, and it's the range of this wavelength is 320 to 400 nanometers. And then we have UVB rays, which only recently have come, actually the opposite. UVB, it's like the burning rays. That's what the traditionally sunscreens used to label and, attest to the protection from UVB. But nowadays, we also know that UVA, it's the aging sun rays. So you should look for full spectrum sunscreen that addresses both. And so UVA, they're absolutely not protected. Like, you're not protected by the ozone layer. Like, it penetrates the ozone layer.
UVA.
UVA, yes. UVB, some of it gets absorbed by the ozone layer, but now already not all of it. And there are also UVC rays, which are absorbed by the ozone layer. Now, we all know there are holes in the ozone layer, but that's like the third thing to worry about, I'm sure, for the future.
Yeah.
So together, the UV radiation has been clinically proven, it is not up for debate, to result in reactive oxygen species generation, DNA, protein, lipid degradation, senescent cell accumulation, onset, altered growth, tissue differentiation, like altered tissues, and that's just to name a few.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. So, and we can talk about like what time of day do we have more of that or the other, but you're bringing up a good point. So most of the discussion around should someone use sunscreen, yes or no, centers around the benefits versus drawbacks of being in the sun, which are valid. It's a valid discussion. Yeah. But I think what most of the people are thinking about is the discussion of they don't know they're talking about that, but they're talking about oxidative stress. Like, they're talking about reactive oxygen species generation, which happens when UV radiation, especially UVA, which is like 95% of the light that gets to us, gets absorbed in the skin, passes through the skin, and there is a discussion there, like, can our body deal with it, yes or no? Okay, valid discussion. We need, especially, by the way, UVB to create vitamin D. But what most people don't know is kind of what you said, is that there is physical damage as well. It's not only the chemical damage that is increasing oxidative stress in the body, and then some people on the far end of this, no pun intended, the spectrum of the sun exposure debate.
Yeah, no, for sure. For example, fair and light skin is a lot more prone to basal cell carcinoma, let's say, versus the darker skin tones. And then malignant melanoma, that's already, unfortunately, prevalent across the spectrum. Yeah,
and I think, but this is another point that's going to come up, which is what people call like solar callus. And what people say solar callus is that you can basically build resistance to the sun or to the sun rays. And that's kind of important to debunk. So first of all, let me just finish the first point, which is it's not only chemical damage, there is literal physical mechanical damage to your DNA. UV passes through your skin, and it literally fuses parts of the DNA together. So there's no way around it. I mean, but when people talk about solar callus, they're really, in their mind, it's someone that is indoctrinated into this opinion. In their mind, they think they're still getting all the benefits, like the vitamin D benefits and stuff like that, but they're not getting damaged from the sun. Now, the funny thing is that it doesn't, like, the reason we know it doesn't work like that is because solar callus, in air quotes to anyone who's listening, has a name. It's called pigmentation. Like, we get more pigmented, we get darker. And we know that the African American population in the United States, since they are, it is, less, UV than the darker skin has evolved to deal with, they have vitamin D deficiency. Like a large percent of the population, like 90% have vitamin D deficiency. So
there's also a myth that they don't get skin cancer, which is not true. They unfortunately still get skin cancers.
Yeah. So you cannot build a solar callus and still get all the good benefits. Okay, it doesn't really exist. There is another real. I just want to be super kind in my words, but real confused people, real people who parrot information second and third and fourth and fifth hand. They will also talk about something called UCA, urochronic acid, which is expressed in the skin when the skin is exposed to more UV. But that mainly is, this discussion is mainly around UVC. UCA mainly, protects against UVC. So there is no, again, there is no way for our skin to be able to deal with sun damage without, without, a physical protectant that we apply on it.
Absolutely.
There's no way to create a utopian, skin relationship with the sun where it doesn't age you, it doesn't cause, damage, and you get all the benefits.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are overlapping scenarios where you could enjoy more vitamin D, and you're still kind of damaging, even aging the skin faster in the background, it could overlap. That's where you kind of need to decide what's more important to you, what areas do you expose. But that is a discussion about sun yes or no. I think as a guideline, what would you say again? I think it's pretty, standard. But what's the guideline as far as sun exposure?
Well, to avoid the sun exposure from 10 to 2, I think that's actually something that I was just thinking while you were saying the things you were saying. That the people that are raving about sun and how important it is and trying to advocate for sun's benefit, it doesn't, you still get a lot of sun's benefit while using sunscreen. It doesn't have to be you can only enjoy the sun and sun's benefit without sunscreen. Because I think that's also something that, some people feel if you're pro sun, if you believe that the sun is good for you, then you'll automatically ditch sunscreen. And it doesn't have to be this way. For example, the fact that we want to go in the morning and look at the sun, first things in the morning, and maybe look at the sun during sunset.
By the way, not directly at the sun, just
Well, yes, but that syncing with circadian rhythm, that's still good for you, either way. And speaking of healthy sun exposure, if you really want to go into the sun without sunscreen, do it right then when the sun is about to come out, and when the sun sets. That would be a safe thing to use. But
also I think we can expose different parts of our body than parts that are normally exposed to blue light, EMF, pollution, parts that are covered normally. First of all of the things that I just mentioned, they lower the cellular energy. They lower ATP. They also increase oxidative stress. we're going to talk about our sunscreen, but that's why our sunscreen kind of protects against all of those things, because those things are comparable to the sun as far as like skin aging. So if you wear a shirt, you wear pants, when you go out to the sun, cover your face, cover the back of your hands, wherever you're normally exposed to all of those other stressors, and expose, if you're in public, you should know what to expose, but expose areas that are normally not exposed on a regular basis to, blue light, etc.
When we talk about the vitamin D production, I think that's a good advice to follow. But again, just going back to the safe sun practice, I mean, if you look at the surveys from dermatological, reports and skin cancer reports, the skin cancers are usually found where? On your head, on your ears, on the back of the neck. It's the areas that are usually exposed to the fluorescent light and the sun's rays. So if you are hiking, if you're doing some outdoors activities and it's peak sun activity, wear the sunscreen, wear protective clothing, wear hats. Like if we want to address and cover the bases with safe sun exposures, like those are, sometimes the biohackers, they just like to be like contrary to everything that the mainstream says. So you know what, they say to wear wide brim hats. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go and I'm actually like
I'm going to wear a yarmulke.
I'm going to shave my hair and I'm going to expose as much hair as I can. Like there is no need, there is no need.
Okay. I think covers it. I'll put one thing out there. There are studies showing that exposure to red light therapy before going out to the sun mitigates some hyperpigmentation, some of the DNA damage that is caused by the sun. So, I mean, if you are going out, the idea behind going out and expose yourself to the sun is like health benefits, skin benefit, health in general benefits. Do a red light therapy session before to the areas you're going to expose. Couldn't hurt. But let's talk a little bit about anything else you want to say, or should we talk about?
No, we can now move on to the two different sunscreen options that people have.
Okay, so I think this wasn't a thing. It wasn't at least like a talking point between a few years ago between different types of sunscreens. Again, an anecdote. Chemical sunscreens, also called organic sunscreen.
It's so counterintuitive.
Yes, exactly. So we have chemical sunscreen and we have mineral sunscreen or physical sunblock, basically. So let's just break down, no pun intended again, what is the difference between the two?
For sure. So chemical sunscreens, which are organic compounds, they actually absorb UV rays. So they're like a sponge that sits, underneath your skin, because once you apply them, they actually absorb. They're underneath your skin layer and they absorb the UV rays there. And I'm going to stop here. And then we have physical sunscreens, which are, the reason they're called physical sunscreens, because they're like physical shield and they stay on top of your skin, especially if it's non-nano. And so non-nanoparticles, and they actually scatter and deflect UV rays. So the UV rays are not being absorbed by the mineral/physical sunscreen. Those are interchangeable. It's the same thing. And the mineral screens, things like titanium dioxide and zinc oxide, they're actually inorganic compounds. Okay.
So one thing about chemical sunscreens, they convert the UV into heat.
Yes. Actually, there is some data that may suggest, I don't have like a clinical study to pin. I have some clinical studies for other things we're going to be mentioning. But there is a preliminary study that may suggest that because of that increased temperature, chemical sunscreens may contribute to worsening of existing pigmentation and melasma.
Well, that plus there are some chemical alterations within the sunscreen formulation, other ingredients that are there because of that increased local temperature. But yeah, so that...
Yeah, well, I guess this is a good point to mention, a good place to mention that chemical sunscreens, usually by being these organic compounds, they're actually oftentimes require much more preservatives. So a lot more preservatives go into the formulation, along with dyes and fragrance. So for biohackers listening, I mean, I'm sure it's less of a concern, but for anyone who is still like, there is this myth that goes, you know what is the best sunscreen? It's the sunscreen that you're going to use. So therefore, whether it's chemical or whether it's physical, it don't matter. Like it's all about the one that you're going to use most. So we are here to bring some of the reasons why chemical sunscreens might be actually a worse option. And so that's the fact that it often requires dyes and fragrance and extra preservatives because they're not that stable, the chemical screens, makes them much more sensitizing. So you're much more likely to develop skin irritation while wearing chemical sunscreen. And that's, again, it's just a fact, like it's a lab fact.
Also, another fact, that's something Andrew Huberman kind of said something, it became viral.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, like, not unfortunately, but the unfortunate thing for him is what he said exactly was not true. Mm-hmm. He was just kind of confusing a little bit of data. What Andrew Huberman said is that chemical sunscreens absorb into your bloodstream, and evidence of them can be found in the brain even 10 years later. Yeah. This is a 10-year-old study showing that you can find traces of chemical sunscreens in the bloodstream, and they can cross the blood-brain barrier. So it's a little bit, the words are arranged a little bit differently there. But to the extent, like, so there was, we were debating if to do like one of our Instagram posts, to do me kind of listening to some dermatologists, like basically alluding to the fact that there are no sunscreens that have been proven to be cancer causing or damaging to someone's health, detrimental to someone's health. And not only that it is not true, and she was alluding that to the fact that there aren't any, but not only that it is not true, it is because of studies like that and some other studies showing actually adverse bioaccumulation and adverse effects of chemical sunscreens. Some of the most popular chemical sunscreen ingredients out there that the FDA now has called to reevaluate the use of chemical sunscreens.
Yeah. And actually, I come prepared
Sounds like you.
With some studies, just to quote for our listeners. So the experimental studies confirm substantial absorption and distribution of organic filters. Remember, that's the chemical screen filters. Whereas inorganic filters seem to not penetrate the human skin or penetrate to the minimal degree. And here they refer to the nano size of them. So in epidemiological study, 2,517 urine samples from United States general population were analyzed. So they weren't like, hey, do you use sunscreen? Let me take your sample. Hey, do you use sunscreen? No, just general population, very large cohort. And so 97% of samples showed chemical sunscreens.
Wow.
Out of 2,517 urine samples, 97% showed, chemical screens accumulation. So we will pin this study to the notes in the podcast. So that was a study in between 2003 to 2004. So then there is a lot more studies, later studies, and what's common there is that the number, the amount accumulated grows higher. Yeah. So it's maintained the fact that you find those filters in the blood, in the urine. These are urine samples, but then there are also studies using blood. And the amount just grows higher. And I think the reason to the higher amount of like nanograms being found per sample is that now we do have a culture of sunscreen. So we have this quite still small movement of biohackers that are like, let's not use sunscreen at all, versus like the whole Gen Z, like 12 years and older, early 20s, just lathering sunscreen, just multiple layers of sunscreen. And there should be a balance there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they're promoting, and you can see it all over like TikTok and Instagram, they're promoting cosmetics that already have sunscreen. And if you are using a foundation, it is not going to be a mineral sunscreen there. Like they have to use chemical sunscreen. So just bear that in mind. Now, the one more thing that I wanted to bring out of importance is that also some UV filters were found in human milk samples. So in a cohort study between 2004 and 2006, 54 human milk samples were analyzed, so much smaller sample size. And now in 46 of them, UV filters were detectable. So that's pretty concerning. And so in another study, levels of BP3, which is the benzophenone 3, it's the type of chemical sunscreen, in maternal urinary samples taken in gestational weeks 6 to 30 were positively correlated with an overall weight and head circumference of the baby. Yes, so these reports raise concerns about potential prenatal exposure and developmental toxicity of chemical UV filters.
Yeah.
So again, all of that comes from peer-reviewed studies. And I just think, we're here for the data, and let's just put to rest the notion that there is no difference between chemical sunscreen and mineral sunscreen, because there is.
Yeah.
And I think on the same note, it's also important to realize, I know we've spoken about it a lot, but for new listeners, when you buy a mineral sunscreen, unless it's labeled 100% mineral sunscreen, it can actually be both.
I just flipped the label, to be honest with you.
Yes, but not everybody knows what to look for. Because, but for your information, like the mineral sunscreen, you can look for zinc oxide. That's the best. You can have small amount of titanium dioxide. I know I might raise some eyebrows here, but really it can. I'm telling you from the biochemical standpoint. But whenever you see things you cannot pronounce, that's usually the organic compounds, which are chemical filters.
And again, like it is something interesting about sunscreen. It has to be in the drug fact. So you can read the whole label if you so chose. But what's important is look at the drug facts. There's one thing you need to do. It's very quick. Flip the bottle or box. Look at the drug facts. Look at the ingredients. There should be only one ingredient. Should be zinc oxide. Titanium dioxide in high levels, in levels that are actually listed there. It's not great for a few reasons. But if you read the whole label, it's in the bottom. It is a part of an iron oxide complex or something like that. It's irrelevant to our discussion here.
Yes, let me rephrase what I was saying. When you flip the label and you look at active ingredients, look for zinc oxide. Ideally you'll have like 17% zinc oxide. Great. And also look for non-nano. So non-nano means it's not nanoparticles. And that also it basically makes it impossible for it to get into your bloodstream. So all of the things we talked about, accumulation of urinary samples, blood samples, that's for sure not going to happen if it's not nano. And actually last year around this time, I was interviewed for an article about sunscreens. And there we talked extensively about this whole notion of nanoparticles in sunscreens. When did it start? Why? For what reason? And we can pin that article as well for you if someone wants to do a deep dive. But in short, so a lot of why, if mineral sunscreens are so much better than chemical sunscreens, why didn't everyone switch already to mineral sunscreens a long time ago? Because it is a little bit less user-friendly. So traditional 100% zinc oxide based mineral sunscreens, when you apply them, what happens? There is a white cast. So there are certain people with darker skin tones usually have an issue with it. They don't like how it looks. And anyone really doesn't want to look like a pale ghost, right? So that's when the nanoparticles were kind of invented, because it would make it smaller and it would let it be less noticeable on your skin. So it was developed really for cosmetic purposes and to boost sales of it. So but it also actually been in general the mineral sunscreens are a lot safer for aquatic life versus the chemical ones. And we don't know, but there might be correlation with if it's nanoparticles to be less safe, for aquatic life as well. So again, to simplify it for yourself, look for non-nano, 100% mineral. In active ingredients, should say zinc oxide.
Yeah, we use a what we call a micronized zinc oxide. It's actually the same size of a molecule than a normal zinc oxide. It is just flat like a puck.
Yeah, it's a different shape. So
smooshed.
Yeah, exactly. So traditional zinc oxide particles that are not nano, they're circular and they're round.
Like a
ball. So micronized, you flatten that ball, but and that's it still makes it, it maintains their size in a way that it still doesn't penetrate your bloodstream. But because of the way they then position themselves on your skin, you actually can use less product. So you don't have to lather as much as non-micronized. And it also has really high percentage of
coverage.
Yeah,
it is. It actually tiles better and covers the skin better.
Yeah.
And I think it's...
I was just going to say that for anyone that's already tried our sunscreen, I think one of the most common feedback that we get is that, oh, wow, there is no white cast.
Yeah.
And it has to do, and we have 17.5 zinc oxide, so it's a high concentration. It's all mineral. And that's because it's micronized.
Yeah.
And although it's hard for you to look for micronized, because the companies, all of these sunscreens, they have to be labeled for the FDA purposes. It's considered, kind of like drug. But you don't have to label that part.
Yeah.
So we're just letting you know. So
it's definitely more expensive than normal zinc
Exactly.
oxide. It's 10 times more expensive than normal zinc oxide. So normally companies don't use it, to be honest. They either put nanoparticles, which they actually don't have to state, or they use normal zinc oxide, and they use dyes or colorants, whatever, or it's tinted, pigmented in order to make it more user friendly. A few things. It's also, by the way, the micronized version also washes off better than normal zinc oxide or nanosized zinc oxide.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. And I think just, kind of sticking around that subject, there is a fad right now of making your own sunscreen. Mixing zinc oxide powder with tallow or something like that.
The tallow. I heard about the tallow.
Yeah, the tallow. Anyway, that zinc oxide will clump up. It's going to become one large ball. So you're going to have one coverage, maybe in a random spot, and the rest you're not going to be covered. So you can't really do it with sunscreens. You can do it with other things. Add essential oils to tallow, or I don't know, add whatever you want. Go, knock yourself out,
Yeah.
It's not going to be a great product. It's not going to be great for your skin, since tallow is...
They say it's non-comedogenic, but I'm yet to see someone without blackheads using tallow.
Well, I'll say that. people think that oils are hydrating, and the truth to the matter is we cannot basically add bonded hydration to the skin. What we can do is we can prevent transepidermal water loss. So your skin always hydrates itself, kind of, right?
Yeah.
So if you prevent water from escaping the skin, you are going to end up more hydrated. Your skin's going to be more hydrated. If anyone kind of flew from, I don't know, Miami, somewhere humid, to Vegas, the fact like mine, like that your lips immediately dried up, that is that transepidermal water loss. It happens more in this this layer mucosa that is what your lips are made of. But again, the oils are actually really bad at preventing transepidermal water loss, so they can make you feel more hydrated, but it's really surface level, doesn't do anything.
Also, they most of the time evaporate. Like you actually, when you put oil, you supposed to seal it later with a moisturizer. You know, it's and if everything is based on tallow, it's just, you know, it's going to feel good for the time that you apply. It won't
Just
be.
gonna say good luck, cowboy.
Well, we can wrap up here. You know, it's like there is no. It won't. Besides that relief of feeling your skin soft. And you know, feeling it hydrated, you won't gain any longevity out of it. Like there's nothing cutting edge about it.
Yes, it's the difference between, like, you know, if you're a biohacker, you've got an injury, you're going to use peptides, you're going to use things to heal it faster. You're not going to take Advil, right? You're not going to take, I don't know, some, I don't even know the names of like NSAIDs, but you're not going to use some like
1,000-year-old herbs that you know, hope that it's gonna heal you.
Well,
injury.
you're not going to use something that's going to mask the pain. You're going to actually treat the cause, right? So by applying something like tallow, coconut oil, whatever that is, you are masking the effect, the lack of hydration in the skin rather than fixing it. Okay,
the reason I said about 1,000 years, because there are some people that they of the opinion that since tallow has been used for thousands of years, must be better than any of the new things.
Okay, show me like, you know, everyone said Cleopatra, you know, was beautiful or whatever. I bet like in 30 years old, she looked like 90. Never mind. So I do want to talk about the cup, like a few more things within that realm. Just an anecdote, there are a few companies that are now kind of claiming both good coverage with mineral sunscreens, sunblocks, and kind of anti-aging effects, or like age reversal effects. There's a problem there. It's problematic. We're definitely like staving off cellular damage, which is great, necessary. The thing is that normally skincare has a vector. It absorbs, like 99% absorbs in like one place in the skin. So if we have a product that is designed to sit on the skin, and you're also ascribing to it some anti-aging, like cellular renewal properties, you are not really, I mean, you're fibbing a little bit. What we can talk about is antioxidants or polyphenols in sunblock, because studies show, if people remember, the beginning of this podcast was explaining that there's like
I don't remember it at the beginning.
but there's like two types of damage from UV. We have like the chemical damage, reactive oxygen species, and we have like physical damage to the DNA. So reactive oxygen species are, you know, redox, that they're handled by antioxidants. So by adding an antioxidant to your sunscreen, you actually you can make it, depends on the antioxidant, you can double the effectiveness of sunblock. This again from published studies. So,
and that's why I think it's a kind of like a known thing. We're going to talk about some lesser known things, but one of the common known things, like a common knowledge, that the vitamin C and sunscreen go well together. And that's precisely for that reason, that the vitamin C will kind of like improve the function of your sunscreen.
We want to look for water-soluble vitamin C. So magnesium ascorbyl phosphate or MAP or SAP. It's less effective version, which is sodium ascorbyl phosphate. They just sit higher in the skin, and like obviously no one should do the ascorbic acid. This is designed to aid you, but THD ascorbate, calcium ascorbate, sodium ascorbate, all of those, they penetrate a little bit deeper, and they're not as effective at like mitigating those effects. So again, like we want something that sits higher.
So THD ascorbate will be the type of vitamin C that you will use for like collagen building and this heavy type of lifting, anti-aging properties that are known, credited to vitamin C, whereas something like MAP you will use for more for antioxidant properties and like shielding your skin from the light damage, be it UV, be it blue light.
Yeah, again, polyphenols are like super important as types of antioxidants.
Such as resveratrol, for example,
resveratrol,
like the more known thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or I think the best, again, synthetic antioxidant is lipochromin 6. Some people know it from supplements. I mean, its cousin from supplements. It's called C60. But lipochromin 6 is an C60 on the skin it actually makes you more sun sensitive. So don't use that. But
I mean, it was thought as like a potential breakthrough until I was not found that actually makes your skin more photosensitive. So it is definitely C60 is great for so many benefits, but it's just wouldn't be like for what we're talking about now, which is prevention of the sun damage. But the lipochromin 6 on the other side, it's it's just like it's a next level antioxidant. So the commonly antioxidants, they're protecting you from reactive oxygen species stemming from oxygen. Now because that's something that we like as humans also evolved, like we have reactive oxygen species as part of our whole metabolism. So, that's a known thing. And that's why you have non-synthetic antioxidants that do that. But what do we have now? Like, did the life change in the last couple of thousands of years, and more so? Yes, we now have pollution. Is that mainly from oxygen? Yeah, no, you have like nitrogen and carbon, reactive oxygen species. And this is the only antioxidant that has this trifecta, like it protects against all three. So be it oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon.
Yeah, well put. And I think the last thing, and obviously like we're breaking down like our decisions in making BioShield SPF 40. But I think it's like very important to understand, if you like Young Goose, if you like the brand, it's important to understand the decisions that go into making a product. And it took like 4 years to develop BioShield SPF 40. I want to talk about Ectoin, but did you want to say something?
I just wanted to make a small note that you and I will love the sun. Like there is no doubt that sun is crucial to everyone's well-being. So if you can expose yourself to the sun, you absolutely should. So that's why it was also very important for us to create a sunscreen that will really be beneficial for you, that goes beyond sun protection, which this is where we're going now. And I don't think we mentioned in this particular episode, so I'm just going to say it. It used to be thought that the sun rays is the majority of the environmental damage, and I would say it's just the sun rays are the most known environmental stressor. But And that's why you use sunscreen, right? To protect from environmental damage, which is known to come from the sun. Now, what if we told you that there are more environmental stressors, but you don't, when we were creating our sunscreen, we didn't want people to have, a product for environmental stressor, the sun, and then product for environmental.
Emmanuel, the stressor. First of all, if you have an Emmanuel in your life, you don't like it, the products are not going to help. You can spray peptide spray into Emmanuel's eyes. But anyway,
yes.
Bad joke. Anyway, listen, but I to your point, I did want to say, yes, we designed a product that will protect you against the median, the average driver of skin aging.
Actually, all of them.
Yes, but I'm saying
got it.
most people go to their 9-to-5 job. They are, if they work from home, then they're at home, they're in front of their phone, in front of the computer. There's actually a new study and viral, information around the fact that selfies, when you take a selfie, because I guess there's a white flash that your phone does, it contributes to skin aging. So you're exposed to, as you said, Anastasia, blue light, not only blue light, but high energy visible light in general, pollution, heavy metals, glyphosates, EMF. EMF is the electrical magnetical field that are foreign, that are like your router and your phone, and all of those things. And all of those things combined, and again, this is well substantiated, drive aging more than UV combined. Okay, UV still, if you took one thing, it's going to be the most, but combined, most people age from them more than they do from UV. And when there is 1.5 million dermatologists and skin specialists on TikTok and Instagram just saying, hey, apply your sunscreen, and they never talk about this, I think it's like a crime. If you are...
But you know what? It's also, yes, I agree with you that for people that know this information and they don't shed the light on this information, that's okay. Let's say it's a crime, withholding this important information, especially if you already have a platform and you can literally save someone's life. But the unfortunate thing is, and you and I, we've been to a lot of dermatological conventions. There are so many dermatologists that are very established. They have the platform, they have the following, they have multiple practices, and they really don't keep up with the data. They actually probably don't know about the effects of the blue light on the skin. That's a recent study. That's 2022 study published. They maybe don't even know about it. They maybe don't. If you're gonna come to their office and you're gonna be like, I'm really concerned. I work in an office and there is so much fluorescent lighting. What do you suggest I do? They're gonna be like, what
does not compute about? I cannot tell them to put sunscreen. So just to kind of understand, just to make sure people understand, you should use a protection against environmental stressors, whether you're outside, whether you're in the office in front of a computer, whatever, and when you go out at night.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's actually. So I remember when our master esthetician Dara posted that reel, of her preparing to go into the night flight into the airport, and she was explaining why she's using our sunscreen to protect from EMF, which is so prevalent in the airport, and the fluorescent lighting and the blue light. Again, you're going to be on the airplane. There's going to be so many TV screens there, and to us, it sounds like, yes, finally, but to somebody, it will be like, what are you talking about? And another example comes to mind when Dr. Amy Killen, recorded, of her being in Vegas in a casinos. And she's like, okay, it's like 11 p.m. at night, and I'm wearing my sunscreen. Do you know why? And then she's like showing you that, she's in a casino for another conference, and there are so many screens, obviously. And she's like, hey, she talked about the blue light damage there.
Yeah, and the smoke probably,
Yes, exactly. She talked about too. But these are like so rare to see, to hear, to find, people talking about it.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to, I want to make sure that we are, concise. Mm-hmm. I do want to talk about, I think the hero ingredient, we're not the only company using it. We were the first ones, but we're not the only company using it. Which is Ectoin. I mean, Ectoin, again, it's one of those ingredients. There is a patented version that costs a fortune to utilize.
Yeah, Ectoin Nitro.
Yeah, and like a bootleg version, and like 99% of the companies use the bootleg version, which isn't live in air quotes. So Ectoin is really, 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 really cool because it actually structures water. Mm-hmm. It creates structured water around proteins.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it keeps basically proteins, the building collagen, for example, the building blocks of the skin, collagen, elastin, etc., keeps them from getting damaged by oxidative stress, by UV.
They're like in a water bubble.
Yeah, they're in a.
There is actual pictures of that, and there because of that bubble of water, there is also hydration carryover.
Yeah.
So normally, let's say you put hyaluronic acid. You put it on your skin, feels great, hydrated. It's gone. It's like it's the same. You're experiencing the effects the same day that you applied it. It's like purely topical.
Yeah.
Like if you were to ingest hyaluronic acid, by the way, you could get those longevity benefits you maybe heard about. Topically, it's nice. It can be part of a formulation. Shouldn't be like a standalone product. And the Ectoin, though, is kind of the, what hyaluronic acid
wished it would be.
Wished it would be or perceived to be still by the majority. So it's a real hydration hero.
Mm-hmm. 11-day carryover. So you're more hydrated for 11 days after applying it. Okay. Mm-hmm. We talked about polyphenols.
And Ectoin is also what protects from the EMF.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we talked about like different types of sunscreen, sunblock. Mm-hmm. We talked about antioxidants. We talked about like why people shouldn't make their own, tallow, all the good stuff. Yeah. We talked about Ectoin. We talked about polyphenols. All of those things, obviously, minus the tallow, are in BioShield SPF 40. So if people haven't tried it yet.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, to summarize, because it seems like that's what you've been doing. We gave people the direction of like, okay, here's why the data suggests you should be using mineral sunscreen, 100% mineral. We gave the points what to look for on the label. If you want to experience the state-of-the-art 100% mineral sunscreen, you should consider the BioShield SPF 40 by Young Goose. And
it sounds much better when you say it.
And we now, in a random order, went over some of the added ingredients. So we talked about, zinc oxide and why that's a great. I don't actually think we talked really about why the zinc oxide is the best version.
No, we said it deflects, it scatters.
Yeah, yes, but again, compared to compared to other options that you have for mineral sunscreen and mineral, like inorganic mineral filters, the zinc oxide really gonna be your soothing, the most soothing agent. It's actually, if you have babies, that their diaper rash is based on zinc oxide. So it's like super gentle, soothing for the skin. And that's something that doesn't like really compute for a lot of people, that the zinc oxide can have soothing, healing properties, but it does. And I wanted to make sure that we don't, finish this episode without mentioning that. It's really
mentioning
cool.
diapers and diaper rash and stuff like that. This is our world now.
Yes, with the 5 months old. Shout
out to Lev.
Shout out to Lev. So now you understand why you want to look for zinc oxide. And there are a lot of sunscreen options with, high concentration of zinc oxide. So you have that. Then we explained, but you have a different price points, right? You have zinc oxide sunscreen for $20 and you have BioShield for $120. Like, what's the difference? And we talked about the fact that, we use micronized, non-nano. So I'm just giving people options, or directions, where to, what to look for. And then we added those other ingredients, Ectoin, lipochromin 6, for added benefits. And the polyphenols, the
polyphenols, you just call them antioxidants, okay? Polyphenols are similar to antioxidants.
Yeah, we actually had a question. What is the botanical mix? Which is
just polyphenols, resveratrol from Japanese knotweed, and all the good stuff. Anyway, feels great, looks great on the skin, and
I'm wearing it now.
I'm not wearing it now. I should be wearing it now, but I'm not. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone. This was my favorite type of episode, which we have Anastasia here. Thank you to Lev that allowed us to do this episode without him throwing a hissy fit. And we'll see you here next time. Hopefully, leave your comments that you would like to see Anastasia again. Apply moderate peer pressure, and we'll have her back.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for choosing to listen to our podcast while you're commuting somewhere, doing your errands, whatever you were doing. Thank you for taking us along.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.